X4, a space sim game primarily focusing on trading aspect of the spacey, shippy, fly, pew-pew game genre. Developed by German Egosoft. They managed to release a single-player game that does not need constant online servers for gods know what stupid reasons, doesn't pointlessly extort or upsell you idiotic cheap garbage, all the while managing to release more content over the years, and more than that, not just stay afloat, but even increase its player count with each big expansion. This is how even a seemingly mediocre game can not just survive, but succeed in this industry filled with over-bloated budgets and bad practices. This is the success of X4. Now, even though I've been covering space games for a while, in case you need a catch-up on what even is a space sim, I've covered their history, so I'll link it down below. But basically it's being a pilot in a spaceship and going pew-pew. And plus some extra steps. Anyways, X4, for those that might not know, is, let's see, 11th game? Hold on, no, does VR Rebirth actually count? Hold on, no, does X3 versions count as well, the separate games? You know what, fuck it, it's the 4th big... hold on, no, does the Afterbirth actually count as... Oh, for fuck's sakes! It's the latest X-Series game. There! Now, over the years I've covered the game and it's been rather interesting seeing how it changed and progressed, especially compared to its bigger profile peers, like let's say Elite Dangerous, Star Citizen and No Man's Sky. Also, being only published on Steam, X4's Steam charts data provides a rather clearer picture. Regardless, usually, and especially for single-player games, the population curve resembles, well, something like this. A big peak at the release, and within the 6 months it drops to a low audience count. And that's normal, even for really good games, like the ones I showcased. Now, of course, sure, Steam charts and hell, even Google Trends are just select indicators. But even so, what is so special about X4, and why has it steadily grown since launch? So, gameplay is niche, even for the genre, trust me. See, X4 looks retro, kinda amateurish in model design, horrible voice acting, and let's not even mention the horror show of a throwback that is the UI. Safe to say, modern X4 does not look. In fact, the opposite might be true. But hey, what the fuck do I know? I'm just some random Latvian. The spaceship controls are backwards too, all the while the 3 game's biggest peers managed to simplify and modernize, even somewhat standardize the spaceship flying. See, X4 almost requires Arma 2 levels of unlearning just to get off the ground. But the point being, the game's more disfigured than Batman's back after it got baned. Still, these are my old critiques, and while they still stand, and annoy me to no end, the draw of X4, the thing that puts you into the mood of willingly lobotomizing yourself for the sake of gameplay, is the complexity paired with functionality that the game offers. Now, yes, these are broad, nothing-burger generalizations that your average IGN the game journalist would shout out at the slightest twitch. So, let's see if I can give you a more simple example. Now, what I used to do back in the day was start a new game, first explore the nearby sectors till I find the main loop, then discover whatever I'm passing by as I'm just being jetted around, and then pick a mission or two for something simple, like let's say a delivery.
Percy! Ejecting.
Once I get enough money, I can hire an NPC. This is where the 2 types of players separate. At this point, some of the players will take the space sim features and throw them out the window like most Russian oligarchs in recent years, turning X4 into a Windows simulator. Now, what you can do is order that NPC to do pretty much everything in place of you. So, go to a station, pick a mission, and then complete them. And the money you get is yours. And yes, yes you can. You can buy more ships, more pilots, and yes, sit in a starport like an attention deficit kid smashing a tablet, looking at menus and call that gameplay. And then there are the rest of the losers, who decide to grab the immersion sticks and fondle the thruster balls of X4 and play it like an actual space sim. Now, of course, me being a pragmatic asshole, I opted for a tablet smashing like there's no tomorrow. Now, what I ended up doing was get a small fleet of just a few ships and tell them to go mining. then sell off whatever they gathered in stations nearby. Well, until the moment I crushed the price and demand for completely everything that I could mine. So I was stuck there with 10 small mining ships filled with rocks that no one really wanted. I repeat, I was so efficient that I utterly changed the way economy in the game worked through drilling my finger into the tablet all day. And funnily enough, that affected not only the economy but a few other little things in the game world. And sure, while this is a basic early game, and yes, you heard me right, early game of X4, one thing I noticed my fellow creators and fans mention about the game and why it appeals to them, often you hear saying economy, trading, micromanaging, all these features are cool. And that's the thing, despite being draped in something that looks like a bureaucrat's wet dream. I mean, it is made by Germans after all. The reason why X4's gameplay speaks to so many is in fact the game world actually reacting to your actions. Like me, with a small fleet, you actually can change the economy in a, well, noticeable way at least. And you know, a similar feeling I get from another game by the name of Kenshi, where you also start out penniless and insignificant, but you can hire more people, micromanage the fuck out of things, and ultimately become the overlord of the land through sheer micromanagement. Well, the game world changes as you progress. Ultimately, I think it's the open world sandbox that actually responds to your presence and actions, even in a slight way that puts it above the big three that I mentioned. While they have small, minor, maybe dynamic world simulation, X4 takes off the training wheels and allows you to influence it seemingly completely. You see, you matter, your actions matter, and more than that, you can feel them, even if it is in a sort of a spreadsheet sort of a way. I mean, hey, if the parasites called day traders can get a kick out of seeing a 1% change, then this would tickle your lobotomy hole pretty well too. See, the success of X4's gameplay here basically is, above all, giving the player the sandbox and a greater way to affect the simulation, giving player agency, and not just faking it. Now, of course, it also helps to have the best market/economy simulator of all the space sims, that's true. But let's not forget about the basic, established gameplay for the genre, like combat, mining, exploration, discovery, and factions too. Hell, did you even know that you could steal someone's ship in the game too? Yeah, that's a rare feature even today. Now granted, it's done through, you guessed it, menus, but it's there. So yeah, though the focus is trading for X4, there is still more. Oh, that is as long as you can muster the menuception. Now, live service is all the hip and cool rage these days, or at least it was when X4 was released in 2018. But X4 is not an online or a multiplayer game, and yet Egosoft kept supporting the game with both occasional bug fixes, patches, even bigger game updates, culminating with expansions, which were paid for endeavor. It has all the benefits of game being quote-unquote live, being updated and improved without the fraud and exploitation of the service bullshit that gets crammed in everywhere. And so, the biggest positive for the community, of course, is developer activity, both publicly in videos, streams, and most certainly seeing a new content drop from now and again. So, I decided to write to Egosoft directly. And for some weird reason, they were not afraid to answer this pesky Latvian. But anyways, among the questions I inquired about, there was a question about the player counts and the increase of them, and why that might be, at least in their opinions. Well, the long and short of the answer I was provided was, you know, it's kind of funny. I covered Stellaris and its success a while back. It too has the same approach of game development. We care about the core experience of the game. You know, what a novel idea, he said with intense hatred in his eyes, looking at certain usual suspects. But okay, expansions. What do they even do? Well, each one for X4 has been a bit different, and I've covered this in my yearly summary for Space Sims, but the general tone of Egosoft's expansions are: add a ship or two, maybe a faction stuff, definitely a story mission, and a new feature and/or expanding on the existing one. Though when I asked developers about this, they mentioned that with every one we try to do something a bit different and quote-unquote push the player base a little. Sure, you can point to many failings in Egosoft's attempt at improving the game, which are fair for sure. Hell, even I, for shits and giggles, booted up RenderDoc and realized that occlusion culling and LOD, the level of detail, are rather, lightly implemented. But when I pointed this out to developers, well, they admitted, yeah, the graphics optimization hasn't been exactly the priority, as much as optimizing the background simulation for markets and PCs and more, which apparently causes bigger performance problems. Even the most recent expansion, Timelines, has been the most reviewed expansion and also the lowest reviewed, thanks to, among other problems, performance. However, when I inquired about the Timelines and its failings, well, I got a block of text that basically said, it's too different, didn't add much to main simulation, much something new players. But the point of that rant being that Ubisoft might be a bit too focused on their own game to realize the bigger faults and failings. Like, for example, the fucking AI and the controls. No, bad Yamix, you already beat that dead horse, bad! This simply points that developers are quite focused on just making their game more interesting, even at the cost of ignoring the basic good practices and established standards within the genre they're making the game for. Controls. Hell, I understand that completely, because I'm in the same sort of a boat with my verbal diarrheas. Just look at my back catalog of videos.
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be shit.
So yes, X4 is not a great game, far from it, but even if you count it among the mediocre ones, it does still stand out because of the few depthful aspects that easily beat even the biggest of boys with the biggest of budgets. Now, if the gameplay and the features were the thing that made the game depthful and interesting, and not just, well, you know, then these constant updates and expansions, public interactions are what keeps the community interested to see what's next. These two aspects of gameplay and the updates that support it are almost fully responsible for the game keeping up and even growing player numbers. But it would not be a full picture if not for one more detail. The game does not waste your time and respects you as a customer. That is to say that there are no gacha schemes, no exploitation of your goodwill or attention, no microtransactions to nickel and dime you for low-effort quote-unquote content, like the content of already chewed food that the mother bird vomits into the mouth of a chick. There is no pay-to-win that most games seem to be sneaking into gameplay these days more and more, nor any of the live servers bullshit like always online requirements or shitty FOMO marketing. So, when I was asking Ubisoft about monetization practices and more specifically microtransactions generally speaking, their answer was this.
We will change policy and start selling items. I will tell all the world that it was Yamix that convinced us.
Wait, no, just, I was asking a question, please stop! See, the reason I wanted to cover X4 was to showcase that, like Stellaris, you can make a game today, in today's industry and market, put an appropriate price on it, then continue developing it. Not just support it for a year and then fuck off to oblivion, but release real, finished and full content packages extra, i.e. expansions, and not just lazy shitty microtransactions. And even if you stumble and fail like you just finished your 10th round in Oktoberfest, you can still somehow manage to grow both your audience and business. This is what I wanted to highlight. See, we all recognize when something is more flawed than a German internet infrastructure, but when you don't get dicked around or milked like a femboy in prison, guess what? People actually want to return and support you? Oh, what a fucking epiphany! Though X4's UI is a major turn-off for me, I'll gladly be their cheerleader, as long as they make actual good decisions and more so show that they don't need over-bloated budgets, or whatever the fuck Ubisoft tried to do with Skull and Bones, or whatever the fuck ActiBliz did with Diablo 4, or whatever the fuck EA did with, anything, or even use pay-to-win like Helldivers, and then claim that it's necessary to succeed for future development and business. Oh, and if you got pissed by that last comment, well, let's see how much you can embarrass yourself doing mental gymnastics in the comments. I dare you. Point is, X4 is a case in point for your smaller to medium-sized game that can succeed with decent content, good relations, interesting design, and flawed but effortful execution, while also respecting the customer and their time. And these are the reasons why X4 continues to succeed, despite looking like an accountant's fever dream, or playing like a 2000s throwback Neanderthal, or having voice acting like this.
This automated message is being broadcast exclusively in the proximity of Heredit's End.
Hello. Hello. Sending you information now. Goodbye.
The positive uptick is a reflection of mutual respect between the developers and the player base, the good and genuine effort even with massive flaws. So I did ask Eagersoft about the employee count within the company, you know, just to get an estimate as to how many people actually make a game like that. And let's see now. 50! 50? What? That's not a small company! So yeah, I offer it now as the time for any idiot in the audience to justify that you need microtransactions, that you need cosmetics, that you need pay to win in games to make a decent game and sustain it as a business. Any takers? And so, let X4 and Eagersoft be a lesson to developers, big and small. Don't make intentionally shit game and don't abuse your players. Is that too much to ask to make a good game, Oh, and speaking of extra sprinkling on top, they actually respond to my questions, plus put some thought into game preservation too, but that's a different story for a different day.